We can remove comments as long as it's documented and that you have a record in case there's a, like an open records request. So what we would do is the village, on any village official page, we would, all these bullet points, we would basically post somewhere in the description saying, based on our policy that we reserve the right to remove any posts that violate this. So I've been in another entity where I had the responsibility of monitoring the daily page, and there was a few comments that I had to remove. So when I removed them, I contacted the individual stating the reason why I was removing them, and I would cite one of the bullet points that we had listed on the social media page.
And then you would document.
And then before I did that, even removing it, I would print the page with the comment, and it would be posted in a folder subject to the whatever records
So
retention policy
we
is.
don't have a First Amendment issue that we're censoring free speech.
No, this is a fairly common practice when it comes to social media.
And how would someone appeal that decision? Cause there's gotta be a way, we even have, Board of Zoning, we can have a authority, cause I'm not saying you would do that, but if anyone else didn't like the person, had a conflict with the person, they remove the comment, what you say, cause it will come up on the individual.
On that. My gut reaction is I'd refer them to you, but I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna enforce whatever is on.
Alright.
I mean, guys, if it gets to that, really.
It has, so, okay, you're
I
not
think
worried.
moving forward,
Yeah.
I think it's really great that we're reviewing this, because I think in the past, these concerns, there was no policy in place, so there wasn't really any way of resolving them, and now there would be, once this is adopted.
Thank you, Tristan Kate. What
Anything-
about
any-
edits? So it says strongly encourage not to delete anything, right? But
Correct.
commonly, I just go from my personal knowledge, I will type something up, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't mean to say that sentence, or it doesn't sound right there, or whatever. Now you're deleting, you're editing. And so what somebody might say screenshot one day, the next day, maybe it's slightly different. Now, what do you?
You
there's
just
nothing
created a second record.
Right, and which is fine, it's just not addressed in here, so I just wanted to make sure if the expectation is to do something about that it's clear.
Yeah, in that case, you would create a second record,
What do we
anyone
do
that
with the
manages
first
an
record?
official page, we can certainly work with them on how to manage
Non-ownership,
that.
right?
As of right now, it's on
Okay.
an official page, so I would
Okay.
say no,
Alright.
yeah.
Also, on page 16, just, the last bullet at the top, it says, it is strongly encouraged for the official to follow up with the village manager and or appropriate department before doing so. So follow up and before are different terms. When do you do that? Before or after? I think you mean before.
It should be before,
So just say to consult instead of follow up.
okay. Yep, I can do that.
Are you in G?
Right before G, so
Oh,
it'd be
okay.
F, I think she's in.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute.
Oh, no.
F. F on the flip side.
Yeah, the last bullet point in F, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else before, right now it's 7:18, so we got 12 minutes if we wanted to
We
start
didn't
the other
finish
one.
the conversation about the referendum, just, there's two ways to go about what I think is getting to the heart of it. One is, you don't want to talk about, you said, I think it says campaign issues, something like that.
There was a bullet that was, located,
It's under D.
yes, that says comments related to political campaign candidates or party. And internally, there is a discussion, what do in there, you just wanna clarify referendum
Correct.
right away, because it was a new, it
Well,
was
even we
old
might
for
put
all of you,
something
it
on the
was
re-
new for me.
But the
In
state
terms of, like-
tails tax, like it might go on the ballot for a referendum.
True, that's another example.
Yep. And so I'm really wondering, because you could say, if you wanted to prohibit that, right, you could say, by government, you can't comment on subjects up for vote by the vote. I don't know what the words would be, but
It
it
will
would
be appearing on a ballot or
That'd be appearing on a ballot
proposed
or-
for a ballot.
if you wanted to not allow it.
Right.
But I feel like if the state sales tax comes down, I'd like to speak about it. Brendan,
So
it's
that would be
official
another
village,
one that
but
would
I could
be-
do that anyways, it's just you're talking about official village.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
just
it's
Oh, okay.
official, you can do
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, the referendum
want
stuff,
to.
I think is more in chapter 5 than chapter 4,
Well,
but
what if we as a board took
Right.
a position on the sales tax and are
Or
saying
even you
we're not gonna
promote,
post it
even
on
if
the
you just give
village
a
website?
background
That's what
summary.
I was trying to processing through, because people do, like, let's use the sales tax as an example.
Okay.
So, people have asked for information, you know, at different points in time we did, a village manager's, you know, a brief discussion on it then, because they've been updating this information, so if someone does ask, you know, I'll provide to them whatever my most recent documentation is that we've gotten from the ICC. We as a board have never taken a position on it, because they've never been to a point to have finalized documents, you know, to review. You as a board aren't being asked to take a vote on it, but you may. No differently than I'll flip to like the other topic, which would also
Sure,
be,
fire department. I'll say it when you're done.
the, like, with the school district, like, we as a board never said we support or don't support.
But you may go on and say, as a neutral party for the village, official village stance would be, here it's happening, you know, goes without pulse,
Right, so I would take the
That-
position of sharing the
Yeah, sharing,
information.
right.
But we've also run into that conflict, where what's appropriate to be shared, what's appropriate for me to be sharing. You know, and we'll use the referendum as that example. You know, some believe that it was okay to have stuff within the scope of the village manager's memo that was shared. Others did not. Some got, you know, got specific in terms of different areas, but I think that it would be helpful to get clarification.
So-
And again, this is the village.
I don't think anyone had a problem with you stating it. It was, I think that someone had a problem with the picture. But the,
So as a part of the village manager's memo
Yeah.
content, we, take content provided by the schools and then
Oh, I see what
forward
you're
that
saying.
through that. So we're, you know, there's just, we don't have a person who just does communication for the village. Tyler has a very limited scope of within his duties of which he provides to communication, of which he does a very good job at the limited amount of time that he has.
but if the
But-
policy said, that you're asking for direction, if the
Mhm.
policy stated, announcements, blah, 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 without, you know, without any photos, or I don't know what the policy could state, but to limit your scope so that you know exactly what you can do.
Well, what if we say, you know, nothing that relates to a vote, unless the village board has made taken an official position on something. So if we
That's
haven't
good.
taken an official position on something, then it doesn't.
If it's going for a vote. So like this is another example just to throw in there, the North Shore Fire Department and all fire departments around the state lobbied a year ago to get revenue increase, or get their capital stuff, something, not count towards their levy limits. We supported it, right?
Mhm.
And if someone had posted on that, like if Rebecca posted on that on the mayor's memo, which is social media, is that okay? I think it is. I would hope she posts on the state tax, you know, the
But we took a position
yeah,
on it,
right.
but we never took a
Right.
position on the referendum.
so maybe we can say some kind of legislative or referendum item that the village decides to take a position on, but that would be the one
Unless the board has
exception.
taken an official position.
Just for village official pages.
Right.
Right.
On your
Right.
own
Yeah.
page, you could
Right.
say.
You can say
Right.
whatever you
Oh,
want.
yeah.
You wanna do?
I just,
As long as
when
you have
we're
this.
done this part.
Okay, so
Wait,
are you
That's a
asking
shot.
me to add that?
Yeah, I mean, I think
What do you-
from a village, you know, like, I think that example was a good example with North Shore Fire, or the fire boards. You know, that was something that we all discussed and voted on, that we were in support of. You know, and if we decide to do that, you know, with the sales tax or whatever that may be, you know, cause coming from the official, you know, if it's in the manager's memo, it is, to me, it feels like this is what the entire board believes and has voted on.
Confirmed.
Could always put a disclaimer if we haven't.
We only have like 5 minutes, I wanna get to, residents, other people's comments, so, President Shaw.
I had two questions. One is, I just wanted to be clear about, like, so it sounded like if you have an official trustees, webpage, right, that then you're, or Facebook page, that you can post things on there.
We don't have them. I think the vote today, or at least the majority, did not choose to go down that path. You can still have it, but it won't be official.
Okay,
I
so
was
that,
pushing for
so then it no longer falls under this policy.
Correct.
Okay.
I was trying to get it to.
Personal use.
It falls under personal
Yeah,
use.
personal use.
Okay, and then I had a question about, and then my second question was about the process for violations, so I guess it sounds here like, if a village member felt like there was a violation to something like, let's say, you know, respecting, the village partners and residents, like, I guess I'm just curious how you do that.
Yeah, so
I have it in my
section-
notes too, thank you.
So I have section H, and this is all I say right now, is any violations or concerns by authorized village personnel or any elected volunteer official should be reported to the village manager. It's the last
Okay, thank you.
section. In the case the village manager or the library director violates the outlined parameters, it should be reported to the village president or library board chair. Once the incident is reported, the village official should handle the matter based on actions outlined in human resources manual.
But, okay, I get,
So where's the
Josh's
human
question though.
resource manual, is that something that
It's online,
I can look at?
right? You can forward it.
Hey,
We have a copy, I think, in the packet today.
Yeah.
It is,
It is, yeah.
yeah.
So,
My question on, going on
I
that,
think the board, if it's an official, the human resource manual, the board would have to take, maybe it referred to the board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would
So-
need
Not for
more
elected officials.
language specified
Yeah.
perhaps. I can go back and check. Village
Yeah,
personnel,
that
we
process.
have a process, but I don't know what it says about elected officials in that
Nothing.
policy.
there's no.
Well, I was just wondering, cause that would,
Yeah, that's
again,
a
like
good question.
it sounds like here that, right, that
I think you
there's
talked to the
somebody to
treasurer.
go up to,
But at the same time, I would have a similar discussion with our group, which is, you know, how do you want to be policed as a group? And is that really my role?
No, unless you break an ethics law, then they need to report it to someone.
Right, but I mean, but that,
Which
you know,
we do.
this instance, you know, whether it be through social media or other avenues, comes up.
What does
you
the
know,
league say?
and I,
What does the league say about that? To enforce it, because they've told me before, so I just want, if it's an ethics violation, you refer to the state.
right, unless you guys have some other governing,
right, which
or
we don't.
stated policy, to go
To
through it.
enforce.
So I'm not intending to review those,
I agree. Well,
because I
you
think
probably
that,
should to see if there's an ethics violation, someone has to be able to review them to make sure if there is true violation, that it would be referred.
Well, what kind of ethics
We don't have-
violation would there be on a Facebook
Right.
post? I mean, it's not
Well-
financial.
Or there's a conditional use permit coming up and a member
There you
makes
go.
statements and they decide not to recuse themselves from the decision process, then the board needs to be alerted that this needs.
Right, there's
more
complaints all the
action.
time.
I mean, I guess I'm getting at the things that are not like so cut and dry in here, that you guys
I get
mentioned
it.
about, like I said, respect, the ways in which people are treated, positive online image, conduct yourself professionally.
Mm.
Those are all
Love
things
that.
that have a lot of subjective, qualities that I don't understand, like, I guess I'm
Right.
just curious how you're gonna do that.
Let me answer her, and then I know Abigail has, unless you wanna answer the same question. I agree 100%, because like I stated, and in my notes, I didn't get to it today, because I thought it'd be an overload, but there's gotta be a clear understanding that difference of opinion is not rude, unsafe, like it's acceptable for an elected official to have a different minority opinion, that may be different than the village board. So, that's the rub, is the interpretation of, well, if it's different, one rub, there's other situations, different ones, but one of the situations is, if it's different, is it wrong? Because we get that, and then another one is, well, they made it on, they made a comment that I took as this way, this is my perception of what it meant, therefore it was rude. I don't know how to police that, or how to interpret that. The best I can, if I was the person having to monitor, which I'm not, but it would be, was it a direct attack on someone? And are they stating an opinion that doesn't agree with their opinion? I don't know how else to do it.
Like if a planning commissioner
Unless you guys
says
have-
that
maybe
an
you have a better
elected official
process.
is unfit for office, that to me is a direct attack.
I just,
Yes.
correct. I mean, I just think I'm wondering, if you put something like that in policy, I don't know what your
Yeah, I get
process
it.
is for violating policy as a board. but if you put it in policy, then, and there's violations of it, then I'm just curious,
How do you
you know,
determine
and I
the
haven't,
violation?
I didn't have a chance to look at the other human resource manual, so.
Yeah.
I 100% agree, that's why I wanna take elected officials and put them over here. This applies to
Do
employees.
you want me to develop a separate proposed policy procedure? I mean, the only one that makes sense to me is for it to go to one of your committees for
Well, there
review
is,
or the
there is
board.
something in the code about if someone submits a complaint against a village official by affidavit, that it gets, it's read and
Referred to
immediately
committee.
tabled, and I don't know,
And
it's a
then
very
referred to
weird.
committee, which would be
Referred
ju-
to
you know,
a
Yeah,
committee.
section
Should we say based on
155,
village
you know,
code language
Yeah,
then?
that is-
Yeah, you know it too.
Should I say,
Yeah.
should I specify the village code language then?
Yeah,
Sure.
For-
Yeah,
we don't
it's
have
like
to
a
know.
code, that's
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay.
I
Because we
it
have
would
that
be my call to put it in
process.
a committee because it doesn't specify anything. It doesn't specify what that committee can do, just so everyone knows. That's where we fell down. But we could always update it.
Except we
I don't, neither
have
Rebecca
that.
nor I
think
want to
have-
because it's not our role. If you have an ethics violation, it goes to the state.
I can address
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there another?
Yeah, I was wondering, if there is a policy about elected and appointed officials, being able to block constituents on social media, and what,
Personally or
yeah,
Okay.
either way.
always read it.
So, for example, I've been blocked by a trustee on this board and have been given communication that directly related to me and my family, that invoked race and warnings about black and brown kids. And so, for me, like, I don't get to see that. Someone sent that to me, like, hey, guess what? This person said.
I know what you're saying.
And I am a voter, I'm a taxpayer, and I should be able to see what these people are saying about me and my family.
That's a great point, and let's relate it to a different form of
I'd
communication.
rather not relate it to a different form.
No, I have to
I'd
just do it
rather
right away.
relate it to what I'm talking about.
I am.